Back. Guys, we're back. Cafe Machina is back. New location. We're in the hub.
Wow.
Look at this. Look at this setup. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
Have
we never done a podcast in here?
I don't think I think you did with some of the guys, but I never did.
Yeah, I did one with like Joey when he came back from his trip.
So, no, it's good to be back. I know both of us, just so we can update everyone, both of us have been very busy with things. I had a kid that's about to turn 2, and I know it's been that long since we really got.
Hold on, so Nico's turning 2 right now.
Nico's turning 2 February 19th.
Wow, I was wondering when you were like coming up here, like, does Nico speak?
Yes,
he speaks words.
He speaks words. Like last night, we were watching a movie, and he gets off the couch and grabs my hand and walks me over to the bathroom. And goes, "I want bath."
No
I'm
way.
like, cool. We're taking a bath right now. But he is obsessed with anything with a motor or engine.
Actually.
Obsessed. He could hear from all the way across the apartment.
No.
If I'm watching a video with a race car or an engine, runs up and then just starts going. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Does that scare you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I told my dad the only way he gets into racing is if he sponsors. Otherwise, it's not happening.
If your dad's sponsors.
My dad's got a sponsor.
Right.
And I think my dad at some point will probably give in.
I mean, how do you... yeah, it's like...
Okay.
How do you cross that bridge?
Do I want him to do it? Yes.
Right.
Do I want the financial burden of him doing it?
No.
No, because I know what I know what it takes to do it more than just as a hobby for fun. So I don't.
Know.
Yeah.
It's what you know. It's what you're good at. You did it your whole life. You raced. So it's like naturally you want your own flesh and blood to like, shit, if they have an inclination and you know all the things maybe like you could have done better early on or like you didn't get, and you can fill those gaps. But the financial gap, that's a scary one.
Look, hopefully with all the things I'm involved in, it will go well.
Right. You can just ball out.
We'll be able to ball out.
Right.
Like Stroll or Latifi and pay for my kid to race in Formula 1 one day.
That would be ideal.
That would be the dream. But no, I mean, that's what, I know you started a company, and that's kind of, we've been so busy with both of our lives that we took a little break, but now it looks like both of us are kind of settled in. I'm still, my business partner and I, we're growing minus. This was our best year yet. 2020 is going to be even better.
Wow.
Started doing some coaching with Racers 360, a little online coaching platform.
That looked cool.
That's cool. So I'm helping lead the karting area of that. I'm doing the car coaching also, but I'm really helping lead the charge in the karting side of things. So
wow,
that's cool. And, still coaching. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit what you've been up to?
Well, just been kind of farting around a little bit.
Farting around growing a company.
Yeah, no, I have. It, with a couple different business partners, we started a marketing agency. So, it's taught me a lot about running a company, and like what the business takes.
Right.
Hiring employees is such a bitch. And like trying to interview people and like actually get something out of it and trying to like know their like story and like if they're good or not or if they're lying, like that's hard.
We talked about this at lunch recently. I've only had, of all my businesses, I've only had one actual employee. It's always been just a business partner myself or subcontractors. I can't imagine having to grow. Well, I can't imagine, but it is going to be a daunting task as we grow. And I know we're going to have some employees at some point, but you're there already. Is this resume like, it's a leap of faith, right? Like, are they telling me the truth, or is this just a really good bullshitter? And then, man, that's the people that are head of HR that are really good at it. That is definitely a skill set to be able to read people, almost reverse engineer someone when they meet them, and really kind of figure out what they're all about.
Yeah.
and being able to say, this is my guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there must be like I feel like there must be a whole university for HR. Like there's got to be a whole like 4-year program of like interview questions, background checks, like going through stages of interviews, how to identify like character traits. I don't know. It's like what I've noticed is a really big challenge is when people are telling you about past experiences or like what's on their resume that might be applicable. They'll go on about this just like this like long word jibber jabber.
Oh, that's the worst.
But it's like you're saying things that are industry relevant, yet you haven't said like, I don't really know what you did. I don't know what the fuck you did there.
Do you feel like a lot of people when they come in to interview with you, they're trying to tell you why they're good for the job or right for the job instead of starting by, this is something my dad taught me always at a young age is, and this applied like with the sponsorship stuff that we talked about, asking questions, right? Like the power of why.
Sure.
Right? And I think a lot of people, and I imagine especially here in Venice, Santa Monica, oh, I worked at this startup. Oh, this is what I did. Let me tell you what I can do for you, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, well, I don't need that. We're hiring you to do what we want you to do.
Sure.
Obviously we want your talent and your skill set, but this is our vision that you're going to help apply, right?
It's a balance because sometimes we're hiring people that what they did at a previous job, we're asking them to do here.
Right.
So that's similar in that case. I think what becomes challenging if you end up as the interviewer talking a lot, you failed.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that should be happening.
No.
But at the same time, I have heard, there was one book from Ray Dalio that I read that was like, they talk about hiring and like the type of people you want. And it's like, if people are like interviewing the interviewer, that's a really good sign of like a good applicant. So it's like, when do you know as an interviewer that you're talking too much and it's a bad thing, or that you're talking too much and it's a good thing because they're like proactively asking?
Well, I think it's if you're talking in response, right? You're like the why, like I said, it's that you're answering the why, right?
Yeah.
So, I've never really had to interview for a job, thankfully, but up to this point.
What about, you didn't at Porsche?
No.
Wow.
No.
Because you didn't.
You mean at PEC or at the driving school? The driving school people already knew.
Oh,
me.
the racing school.
Yeah, the people already knew me from Road Atlanta and in the Panos Racing School. So I just came over. I mean, obviously they need to make
sure.
Yeah, but they still need to make sure that I fit in the culture.
Sure.
Because that's a completely different culture than your normal driving school.
Right.
We've talked about the Porsche way, and that kind of big corporation. Just like if you're brought into Apple or Google, you're coming in to work in their environment, not to create your own environment and your own culture, unless you're asked to do that, right? But if you're not asked to do that, you need to work in their culture, and that Porsche culture is vastly different than the rest of the racing industry in terms of racing schools. And coming from especially a Skip Barber background is vastly different.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the reasons why there were especially at the time that I worked there were very few people that worked from Skip Barber that also worked there. And they purposely didn't hire people from Skip Barber for that reason. And I think the only reason why I was able to work there was because I knew the guys from the Panos days, because I worked with them at the Panos days.
Interesting. So you worked at Skip Barber too?
Yeah. Well, because I won the scholarship. That got me dialed in there.
At Road Atlanta?
I worked at Road Atlanta and I did...
For Skip Barber?
Yeah, and then I went to their regional national races and did 2 of their shootouts. So
I worked at Skip Barber at Laguna.
Did you?
Yeah. Never did any shootout stuff. It was very like few and far between.
It was hard. I had to like pretty much beg and plead to do it.
The shootout thing?
Yeah, and you think like they would want someone that had won it, right? To be a judge and that's involved and raced in the series and went on to race in sports cars and everything. But I think one, they always tried to bring in, which I understand, right? They always wanted, if that person, it was to be one of the bigger names, right? Someone that
Sure.
actually went in and did IndyCar or something like that. So that's understandable. But finally, they said yes, and I didn't do too many of them
Yeah.
because I maybe spoke my mind a little too much. Well, then, I mean, we can kind of talk about this now because it's a new Skip Barber. But back in the day, I
Yeah.
mean, and it was always political, but when they switched from the Sweet 16 Carter shootout, which is invite only, couldn't pay your way to get in.
Sure.
It was the top, what they thought the top 16 kart drivers in the country. And I think most years you could agree, at least, 13, 14 of them were definitely the best. There may have been a few in there you're like, really? But in regards, pretty much everyone there deserved it, right?
Yeah.
They were the best in the country.
What year was this?
This was mid late 90s all the way to the last year was our year, I think. So 04, 05 was the last year. And then they went to the model of kind of anyone. This is when they started to be in financial trouble. So they started to use it as a way to make money almost.
Yeah, right.
And started to
have every Carter sign up for it.
You could sign up for it and just pay your way to come in.
Is that how it worked?
That's
Really?
how it started to work. Before it was free.
Yeah.
You just showed up.
But you had to get picked.
You had to get picked.
But now you could literally have 100 go-kart drivers.
They capped it, but yeah, I mean, there was like 50. I think at one of them I did, there was like 50 drivers.
And you just couldn't, you couldn't do a 3-day school or something before, right? Or could you?
No, you could.
Oh.
No, I think actually you needed to. Because I think I even remember with ours, you had to do at least a 3-day school before you did the shootout. Now, where it got crazy, and this is where I started to speak my mind, is you always heard rumors of it being political and drivers getting picked for certain reasons. It was always, the reason you'd always hear is, well, this driver has budget to race like the whole national series. So or they have budget to go further in racing. So we're going to make sure that guy's one of our favorites because he has money. Or we're going to give him the whole national schedule, but we have all these test days and extra days, and we know they're going to want to buy all those. You'd hear rumblings of that. Someone that already spent a lot of money with Skip Barber, doing some of the 3-day, 2-day, that guy getting a little bit of favoritism. But I literally witnessed at 2 shootouts them changing the rules to favor a driver.
No way.
And I spoke my mind in one of them, and it did not go over well. But as
the judges,
to the other judges, no. We had a private meeting, and we were talking about what we were going to do for the rest of the weekend, and the drivers that were going to be selected through the process of like the next stages, and just what you would hear some of these people say. You're just like, you never went through this process. Like, you don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
You're telling me a kid that's been fastest pretty much every session, consistent, makes one small mistake. That is hurting him more than some kid that was consistent but slow.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, never drop. I hate that
They're
mentality.
Like, that happened. I did, I won't name names, but I recently went with another driver to a program that was like that. And this driver that I wasn't with, but another driver that was there should have won it and got penalized for like a half spin on the session.
Oh.
Like, didn't even spin. They were like, you weren't consistent enough.
Sure.
It's like, have you seen Hamilton, Verstappen? Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah,
you can't tell me, like, it's not like you bend the car and you're like, you half spun in the track.
Yeah.
But was the fastest, most consistent other than that.
Sure. He's like near the limit. Like, that's going to happen.
And it's racing. It's always going to be political. But I think in those situations with these young drivers, it was just a shame to see the politics. And you hear it now even with like some of the road to Indy driver shootout stuff that they've done.
Sure.
Where you hear, it's always the father or the kid that's, I was the fastest. I can't believe I get. But when you hear it from enough people, you're like, whoa, like, I don't know how that person got picked. Like, they were like fourth, fifth fastest the whole time, and maybe had one session that was really good.
Yeah.
And then you have someone that pretty much dominated and somehow doesn't win the big scholarship. And you know what? I'm tired of hearing all this about marketability and this, and this. Like, look, most kids and most drivers will learn to be somewhat marketable.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can look at Keselowski,
Logano,
some of them. If you look at them earlier in their career, I mean, you wouldn't say they were very marketable, right?
Yeah. No,
And there's
no.
plenty of other drivers you could say that about too. You learn, just like you do with your driving skill. You learn, you get better.
Right.
You know? But to hold that against a young driver that they don't have the personality yet is ridiculous,
Yeah,
in
I
my
also
opinion.
think there's a lot to be said about picking. So first of all, I think IndyCar makes a very grave mistake in their marketing, just as a company, because you can see it with Formula One now. They've like bought into the idea of their drivers being famous,
Yes. Just like NASCAR,
just like NASCAR,
which helped NASCAR
and it helps
blow up.
Yes, it helps the fan base tremendously because now each little driver has a whole world of following, and then they bring that to the sport every time. If you plug in 20 drivers, that's 20 different like little worlds.
Yep. Just look at Lando Norris. He's of the
great
new stage,
example.
right? He had his own
Yeah.
YouTube channel beforehand. They kind of, because when he joined McLaren, right, it's kind of like the Penske type thing where they want to do their own marketing, and so he does very little of his own stuff anymore. But look, he was just on Casey Neistat.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
he's been on it twice now. Casey went to the last race, and then he just came out to Vegas and did something with a OnePlus phone launch. But he's on Casey Neistat's channel. Well, that just being open or on Casey's channel, who has millions of followers, very few of them probably follow Formula One.
Yeah.
Now are like, whoa, this guy actually kind of cool. Wait, let me follow his channel.
Sure.
Oh wait. Now you're starting to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem with Indy. You're right with IndyCar. You're way too focused on the teams. What you hear about, right?
Yeah.
You hear a little bit about the drivers, but there isn't enough marketing about the actual athlete itself.
It's about like Indianapolis.
Yes.
That's what they care about is like whatever's happening in Indianapolis, you know, and mostly it's just team stuff. It's like Andretti or Ed Carpenter. Then you got Penske down in what is it, North Carolina.
Yep.
And it's just, that's the narrative. And I think it's a mistake to not double down on not only the drivers that are in IndyCar, because those guys are like, we did the numbers. So Lando Norris, great example. It was literally in like some of our marketing decks because we added up the top 15 in points in IndyCar, their followers, added it combined was less than Lando Norris's Instagram followers.
No way.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, you're talking about Formula One compared to IndyCar, right?
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Sure.
You know,
Different
demographic
following.
compared to, you know,
Sure.
pretty much a North American and a little bit outside, but,
Sure.
mainly North America, South America. But you're right. You would think at least if you put the top 5 together, they would equal or be a little bit more than a Lando or
and
someone.
Takuma Sato, former Formula One driver. Alexander Rossi, former Formula One driver
Bourdais.
at times. Bourdais. So you have guys that have that experience before Formula One doubled down on their drivers being the stars of the show. And I think this is cyclical starting at the grassroots level. So when you get to that Road to Indy shootout or whatever it is, and they choose the marketable guy because he can wear a polo and like whatever, I think the narrative should be more like, who is like the racer's racer, the guy that he bleeds racing. He's all of it. He is the sport. Who cares like if he matches Penske or give me a sponsor that's a good
Raikkonen will always be the example for what you're saying, right?
Yes.
He bleeds racing. He's become marketable, right? Because it's kind of, and people love his personality.
Right.
But could you imagine him, no money, coming up through the racing world today, of being a very good driver, right? Not amazing, very good, right? Definitely has some awesome talent, winning races. But people would be like, he doesn't like to talk. He doesn't.
Right.
It's like, well, that's fine.
It's totally fine.
It's totally fine.
And
it's his personality.
I think this is what
companies love him.
This is what people want. When you watch a sport, you want that person to be you want to have this idea in your head that they literally throw footballs in their sleep. That they literally are like, they're on simulators. Yep. They get on every type of thing with an engine during the week. All they do is racing. They were built for this. You do not understand genetically how different this race car driver is compared to a regular human. That's what people want when you watch a sport, because you want to be enveloped in this other world.
They're
that
all
you
in.
could never, they're all in. When I think a good example, the reason why I kind of like got to this perspective is when I went and did Baja, and then I started Dakar happen this past year. So this is the first time I've really followed Dakar. Ricky Brayback, you know, he's a desert rat. He like, this is what he does. Like probably a major reason why he won Dakar is because I'm sure every week he's in the desert riding a dirt bike. I mean, he won the Baja 1000 and then he wins Dakar in the same like 2-month, 3-month time period. That's insane. That's insane. It's a crazy accomplishment. But when you're watching it, you can tell like this guy, this is
live
him.
and breathe it.
He lives and breathes it. I don't care if he's marketable. This is dirt bike racing. In a nutshell, Ricky Brayback.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, I work with a lot of drivers from ages 12 to in their early 20s. And it's amazing to me now, and I think in my generation it was a little bit different. The amount of drivers now that don't follow the sport. The sport of, like, they're in karting, right? They don't follow the sport of karting. And they don't care. It's like, what do you do? Oh, I go play my video games. It's like, okay, but like, how do you prep for races? Like, are you watching, like, when you're off the track, because you can't, like and we've talked about this, like a baseball or basketball player, just go shoot. Go find a friend, just throw the ball and work on your technique and everything. You can't. Even on a simulator, you can't work on the same things that you're going to be working on a kart track.
Yeah.
But what you can do is, and I do it. I don't even race anymore, and I still do it because I love the sport so much. Dude, I watch old videos. I watch new videos. I watch every major European karting race, and I'll be like, "Hey, did you watch this last race?" No, I didn't even know there was a race. I'm like, you didn't know there was a European Championship race? Or you didn't know the World Championship was this weekend? No, and, you know, I've had some drivers that struggle with defending maybe. We'll just say, you know, a technique or something. Like, do you ever watch races and see how, like, the professionals defend?
Or an F3 race?
No.
You got to watch it.
Like, and you're like, what? You don't, how? But if you were to play baseball, wouldn't you watch a professional or someone way better than you?
Yeah, like a pitcher, you'd watch.
You watch some technique and try to emulate a style.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me that there isn't as much of that. You meet very few people these days, I think, at a young age that get...
That's interesting.
That are all in. Not all in like, this is going to be my profession. That doesn't matter. At a young age, you do not need to be... I actually think there's too many drivers that aren't involved with other sports. They need to be involved with other sports, whether or not it's as a hobby, right? And I go, oh, yeah, I love going and playing football with my friends, right?
Sure.
I don't play football. I don't play Pee Wee League or play high school football, but I love playing football with my friends. That's
so fun.
You don't need to be a specialist at 12, 13, 14 years old, right? You need to broaden.
You need to be a competitor.
You need to be a competitor.
Yeah.
And then you can decide if you want racing to be your thing.
Right.
But if you're not, and I think that helps you be all in, right?
Totally.
Than just checking out and, I'm going to go on my phone and play, Fortnite, or I'm going to go watch memes and whatever it is, right?
But you know what's interesting is like, okay, so think about racing. It's not an Olympic sport, so you don't have like this.
Which can we say real quick? Now with surfing, skateboarding, come on.
I know.
When is it going to happen?
How? I know. I'm trying to think like
race
what
of
would it look like.
I think it could be a race of champions,
know,
or
it's not the same sport.
There's racetracks all over the world. You're telling me that you couldn't do an event where every country has 2 drivers, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's only a team event, not an individual event, right? Sure. And you come and everyone uses F3 cars or GP2 car or the women's series type cars, right? You're telling me that you can't? Come on.
Of course.
I
love that. I love that.
Of course. And I guarantee if it was done, all the countries and the governments would put money behind it.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be, it would be expensive, don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't be.
Imagine if you did like a stock car format.
That's what I'm saying.
You do like literally.
You could have 2 or 3. You could have 2 or 3 disciplines.
Yeah.
Right. All at the same track, different types of vehicles, different length races.
Yeah. I love it. But okay, so this, when you make something like an Olympic sport, then you have these coaches that come into it that treat it like a team sport, because this is USA you're representing. This is a big deal now.
Yeah.
Right? So now there's a regimen. And they talk to you about how you need to go about your life. Like if you're going to be an Olympic athlete, but you have to be all in.
But think about how they do basketball, right?
Okay, but
but it can be done similar to that, right?
My point is this.
I get.
Hold on.
Sorry,
Let me back up.
sorry.
It's mainly not about the racing we can vie for that in the next conversation. My point is when you do, like, if you're going to be a bobsledder.
Yeah.
Or like you're going to be a snowboarder.
Yeah.
And you're going to do the super pipe.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal, and you're going to have to practice a lot, and you're going to have to train a lot. Or think of like Lindsey Vonn. You know, like what she has to go through on a day-to-day basis, she's fully bought in. Like her training every single day. And she's watching videos. She's watching like videos from her past performances.
Yes.
She's watching competitors. And there's a whole regiment to her day, right? And this is what goes on in the life of Lindsey Vonn, who's a skier, and she's all in. Now, compare that to, like, I'm sure there's young skiers that are coming up that know that regimen, and they're trying to emulate it with their coaches. In racing, though, there isn't that, like, there's no Olympic side to it. And then a lot of the times in racing, it's just not a team sport for a lot of people.
No, it's not. I agree.
And it is. People say, they say thank you to the team, and they say whatever. But when the race weekend ends, everybody goes off in their way, and they go and do their own life.
Yep.
The mechanics go, they work back on the car. They're doing their regiment to prep the car. But the driver, oftentimes, you're left with, what do you do as a driver to be a race car driver fully bought in?
I think that's a thing that we see mainly in North America. If you go to Europe, it's different, man.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
You those kids, and I always tell people, the whole reason why the Brits, the Italians, the Germans, these guys all produce Formula One drivers.
Sure.
Is because at 10, 11, 12 years old, they're on the program.
Yeah.
There is not a single team or program in North America that operates that way. Not a single one. There isn't one that exists at even the closest level. There's guys. So the season ended technically the season ended in November for the European season. Okay. Sure. Most of the top drivers took maybe a week off. They're testing every week, 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah, that's cool.
Throughout the winter, right? They're with the team. They probably have their driver coach that also drives on track with them. Yeah. Like, perfect example is the Cosmic Factory team. Carol Bosch, who is a former world champion, who now races Lamborghini Super Trofeo and is moving up the sports car rank, gets hired to run with these kids. And he's on track 3 to 4 days a week with them, practicing racecraft, working with their, they know what they should be doing diet-wise. They know what they should be doing workout-wise. They know what they should be doing school-wise.
Sure.
They're on the program. We don't put our kids in those situations.
Yeah. Why?
Because we just don't, our culture doesn't take it serious enough early enough.
We haven't accepted the sport in our culture.
If we had a program like that where we could kind of help maybe the 5, 6, 7, 8 best drivers in North America and give them a program, right? And help support them, whether or not financially or just with that program, to teach them what is necessary so that when they go into car racing, it's like, I know how to act. I know what my responsibilities, I know what the expectations are as me as a driver, right? But most of the time, when you finally go into Formula car racing, that's the first time you really get in that environment.
Right.
And then the kids don't know. Or the expectation is so different and so high for what they're used to that they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Or they can't handle it. They can't handle the pressure because they're not used to it.
Yeah. I absolutely think that you can't, as a driver, especially in the States, try to emulate what it would take comprehensively to do it. I feel like going over to Europe is probably has to be the best move if you want to double down on that idea.
That's it. It's not for everyone. It's super expensive. But if you're bought in and your family's bought in,
and that's not to go to Formula One. That should be
that should just be
an important distinction.
But it's, as I tell people, it's not that you need to go do the big $250,000, $300,000 season.
Yeah.
You need to put your kid. Oh. It's not about doing that big program and committing that financially or taking your kid out of school like a lot of these kids do. And
sure.
But it's about the kid understanding what the expectations are and what they need to push themselves to be. So do 2-3 races, right?
Sure.
Oh, we have a little coffee around here?
Oh.
We have a guest?
Sorry about that.
Some kanka.
Just brought your stuff here.
Thank you.
And I got
Thank you,
pictures
love.
from the dog people, so it's exciting.
Oh,
someone's getting a dog?
Yes, we're getting a dog.
So yeah, I mean
It's hella cute.
it's more about that. I think it's easy to get complacent, and it's easy if you're a top driver to be like, oh, this is all I need to do. Oh, this works for,
Yeah,
and
then
I'm
winning.
And not knowing, oh wait, there's another level.
And it's gonna get harder.
And there's a reason why in North America right now, in the senior competition, you look at the top 5 best drivers in the country, even in juniors too. They all have some European experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's a few races or they race over their full time, they have some European experience.
Sure.
And it's about that. It's about to learn the process, learn what's expected at that kind of level. And you see these drivers that there's a new driver that I know personally that Minus 273 actually helps sponsor, Dino Boganovic. And 2-3 years ago, he was a good driver.
I want to sponsor him.
He was up front in the junior competition. Didn't race much internationally. Started to race internationally. Made a lot of mistakes, but was fast, but wasn't like fighting for race wins all the time, right? And now he just got signed 2.5 years later. Now he got signed to Ferrari Driver Academy.
No way.
On his way.
He's on his way.
Supported by the Swedish Racing Federation. He's the same. I think he's supported by a little bit the same people that support Rasmus Lin in the beginning. I think it's the same group. I think. But that kid, if not in that program, not in that environment, maybe would have never gotten to that point.
No, of course not.
Right? And there's all these drivers. Jack Crawford, who just got signed with Red Bull from North America. Okay. Again, who's to say those opportunities wouldn't have happened? That program would have come along. That if he wasn't in that environment, he spent some time in Europe. They have the budget to do it properly. Yeah. But if you want it, you got to put yourself in those situations, right?
Yeah.
And I think you look at an Oliver Askew, right? There was someone that didn't really have the budget to do it. Got an opportunity to race with PSL Karting and Factory Beryl Art Driver, which that was the first stepping stone to be like, oh, okay, I'm in a program. It's probably one of the few programs in North America that really has that real professional environment.
Sure.
Got to do some races in Europe. Got to get his name out there, right?
Yeah.
Won some championships. Okay. Got some opportunities because of that to do those shootouts and was able to excel in those. But a lot of that was because of the environment he was in and his family put him in to learn that professionalism, to learn what was expected.
Sure.
So
I'm sure that's amazing. I mean, I look back at like my karting career and like what I did. And look, we threw what we could at the thing. I never looked at a little itty bitty trace of data in my karting career once.
I didn't know. We didn't have data.
Yeah,
I didn't have data.
Have data.
I had RPM.
Yeah. Like we had the
we didn't have speed. I had Digitron. I remember when the first Micron came out, I was like, what's this?
Yeah, it's a computer
what?
in your hand.
It's so cool.
Yeah. And it's like, it really doesn't, it gives you lap time, on track. So I look at what's out there now, and I think the progress young drivers can make, or even, like guys that are racing in senior, if you're in the right program, mentally, it's a different ballgame when you throw so much more analytics and metrics into it. It's like, because a lot of people talk about like, you can't get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
Use data as a tool, but nothing more. You know, like at the end of the day, it's down to you and the mushy bit in the middle to drive.
Yeah.
But as a driver, if you can apply data to your program and you're good at like analyzing it, and you're, you know, like when you see like a little brake trace that's off, you know the exact thing you got to do to not do that again, to be quicker. That's money. And if you can make the adjustment the next session, bang on first lap, I mean, that's the type of stuff that the pros are doing. That's how they can apply that.
That's the one thing I work a lot with the drivers I work with is, and sometimes you do go over data kind of quickly, but if you're missing something and you're not willing to sit down for an hour and really dive into the data, you're missing something.
Yeah, totally.
If you're like, I got it after 5-10 minutes, and then you go on track and can't apply it, then no, you don't have it. You need to sit down and drill it into your brain and really understand it, right? Really digest it and analyze it. It's no different. And I always use the analogy of like learning a new way to do a problem at school, you know, like a math problem or something. You think you're going to learn it in 5 minutes like this?
Yeah.
What if it's given to you two or three different ways? Are you able to use that same formula or use a different version of that formula to solve a similar problem? If you can't do that, then no, you don't really know it.
Yeah.
You think you know it, but you really don't know it. So you have to have that discipline to sit down and figure out why it works and how you apply it in every situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talk about like, you know, the philosophy, what kind of development program, because there isn't anything in North America, and what is a driver supposed to be doing? It's supposed to go to Europe. I'll say this, that from my experience in football, I think that it's ripe for creating an environment for drivers, some sort of academy or something that it's all encompassing. When I think about football practice, you know, how many times we actually played a game, you know, because ultimately
we've talked about this before.
Yeah. Like a football game.
Yep. It's the fundamentals, man.
You got to go back to the fundamentals and just learn how to tackle, how to catch a pass, how to run a route, how to throw a pass while the guy's breaking on a route, how to read a defense. And then you got to look in, and we were talking about this earlier, when it's like you got to be a fan of the sport. Have you ever seen the professionals defend down, you know, like after Eau Rouge, when you're coming up over it, you see the guys defend at Spa. In F3 at every level, you can learn a ton just by watching it. But like that's a little spoke on the wheel on 100 spoke wheel of things you need to be doing. And, you know, I think back on how much film in football we would watch to read defenses.
So did you see the HBO documentary that they did with Saban and Belichick?
I watched about half of it.
Okay. What did you think?
Yeah, it was, I mean.
Does it not apply?
Everything.
To not just racing. It applies to everything.
Yeah,
it's incredible. I learned so much on what I think I can apply to the drivers I work with. But it was interesting to see some of the things that they were talking about players and what they're willing to do. Yeah. And one of the best quotes I ever heard is that I think it was Saban said something to the effect of like, if I'm more motivated than you to be like the best that we can be, right? We're never going to be successful.
Sure.
Right? You have to be more motivated you have to be willing to do more work than me or your teammate, because you should be doing it for yourself, right? Yeah. There were so many points there, and any driver, I think, should watch this documentary on HBO, because it's just incredible. Some of the information they're willing to give people on just how to be dialed in and committed and being a professional.
Yeah.
And I think I did something like an Instagram story of one of the comments that Belichick said. He said after this loss, he, you know, they're on the plane and they break out the iPads and they're like trying to dissect. And he's like, what do we have to dissect? Like, we missed tackles.
Yeah.
What's a video going to show you about missing a tackle? You aren't tackling properly.
Right.
we need to tackle properly.
It's so good.
Dissecting a video is not going to do that. And I think that's what we were back to kind of like the video is. Sometimes you need to dive deep.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be like, no, the video isn't going to show you, that you're, if you can't go apply it, the video is not going to help you. You have to be able to go apply it or work on applying it.
Sure.
But the data isn't always going to tell you everything you need to do. We don't need to. It's very simple. Sometimes the most simple things get overanalyzed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's got to be. So I think a coach absolutely is necessary for like every driver. I think maybe there's exceptions, but even if you're like, it's going really, really well for you, I think there's still room for a coach for improvement, for mental capacity, because there's always going to be those times when the winning stops.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you're not in the most competitive car and you got to fight on.
Yeah.
And I think that coach is the one that's going to set the precedent after a race and be like, it's because you couldn't tackle.
Right.
It's because you're braking. What the fuck? Like,
right.
We're not going to look at data. You know how to brake.
Right.
What was, that's like it's not that you're missing this fundamental.
Right.
It's that you didn't do it.
Right.
And then there's the other times where it's like you go to a track and maybe it's a street circuit or maybe it's wet and you clearly are missing like a fundamental piece that it's like you could try whatever you want. You're not going to be competitive.
No.
This needs to go back to the drawing board and you got to analyze this, And I think that's where coaches can really step in and set the bar for like, we got to analyze data for the next 3 hours or don't think about this. What you need to do.
I think the other thing too that was interesting about that, and I've started to recognize trying to be better at this also, is helping drivers be the best of what they are as a driver, not trying to make them the driver you want them to be.
Sure.
Right? Because then every driver would just be the same that I work with, right? This is how I drive. This is how I find it to work best. No.
Right.
And they talked about this with athletes. Like, certain quarterbacks, the proper way to throw a football is the proper way to throw the football. Or I guess actually a good example would be, I was watching this thing with Kobe Bryant the other day. He's talking about, when you shoot the ball, you should be kind of here. Well, it was more comfortable for me to have my elbow out just a little bit. Okay, is it the perfect form? No, but it's the way I found to work best for me.
Sure. And
there's too many times I think that, and it's in racing too, where a driver has a certain particular style, and you have to harness that style. Now, there may be things fundamentally they're doing wrong.
Sure.
That you're like, dude, that's that's never going to work.
Just physics won't let you.
Right. But if it's just a little tweak style thing, you need to embrace that and make that the best that they can be with that style. Yeah. And I remember, not that I have any part of this driver's success at all, but I coached Connor Daly for like 2 races, I think, when he was really young. And I remember I was trying to fix something with the way he drove. And Derek came up to me and he goes, Chris, we're not fixing his style. And I didn't really think about that until like a year ago when I was just thinking about that, right? And because I've heard it more and more times with top athletes in different sports and coaches about harnessing a specific that a person's own style and just making that great, not trying to make them conform to what you want them to be.
Sure.
And I thought, you know what? There's a reason why Connor has made it to where he is and why Derek made it. He was so right.
Interesting.
Connor wasn't doing anything fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
It just was a little different style with how it had something to do. I can't remember if it was like hand position or just how he kind of like positioned his body in the cart when he drove. I mean, this was a long time ago. I mean,
so he was karting.
He was like 12 years old.
Wow.
Because he was in juniors. So it would have been 12, 13, 14 years old. So, but I remember, and I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But thinking back on it now, I'm like, you know what? He was dead right.
Yeah.
Dead right. That's not what you should be focusing on, those little things.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
It's the fundamentals that you should be working on.
Yeah.
Right? Braking properly. Are you able to get to the maximum brake pressure threshold release properly?
Yeah.
That's not going to change, right? There may be small variances there, right? Certain drivers in IndyCar have a style where maybe they don't brake as late or as hard, right? Some guys like to be the last of the late breakers, like a Ricciardo or a Hamilton, right? And there's other guys that brake a little bit earlier, a little bit softer, but roll more entry speed in, right?
Yeah.
So that's a style. But as long as they're braking properly and the release of the brake is proper, right? And they're not locking up the brakes, why do you need to try to make that driver conform to what you think is best?
It's so amazing when you break it down. It's like there's infinite amounts of ways to go through a corner. Like the variances in like micro mile an hour is so infinite because think about it, like the difference of braking 5 or 10 feet earlier or later means different brake pressure, different mile an hour, different rate of slowing, different brake release, different time of brake release related to where the apex is, rolling speed, and when you get to throttle, when you're opening up your hands, how the cars rotate.
You may be too young to remember this, but when Alonso first really started to burst on the scene in Formula One and was going up against Schumacher, two very different styles of driving, but both worked. Schumacher was early, trailed a lot, early on, really got into the corner. Alonso liked to take more of a later apex with a little bit more aggressive input, where Schumacher turned a little bit less input, right? Trailed the brake, a lot earlier turn in slower hands. Two world champions, right? Two vastly different styles.
Yeah.
And again, it's about harnessing that style.
Sure.
And the fundamentals worked. All those drivers have the fundamentals that work for their style. So I've noticed that a lot recently, and I think more parents with their kids in a younger age need to just let their kid have fun, let their kid learn, let their kid throw the cart around, work on the fundamentals, hitting apexes, turning in right at the right point. You may turn in a little bit early, but that's fine. Are you turning in with less input and slow hands?
Sure.
Right? That can all change. You go to any race, you'll see top 3-4 guys taking slightly different lines going the exact same lap time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is no perfect way to drive a lap around any track.
And there's no perfect lap.
And there's no perfect lap.
Doesn't exist for anyone.
Right? We just work to strive to achieve that.
Yeah.
And you try to get to as close to it as possible.
Sure. Yeah, it's so funny. When you break it down, there's no perfect lap anywhere. And nobody's driven a perfect lap. There might have been some times on new tires when it was close. But there we go. We got some engine noise going.
What we got?
I think it's an M4.
We got a neighbor.
A little neighbor.
Oh, a little sexy white M4. I like it.
What were you going to say?
I don't know what I was going to say.
Well, let's wrap up to end this little rant of driver academy, what have you. I think my question would be, if you're in North America, you don't have access to Ferrari Junior, because the guys that are getting into Ferrari,
whether or not they're paying to be in it,
whatever,
they still are getting the resources.
They're in it. And they're getting the resources, and that's a huge deal. They are literally making them Maranello.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing opportunity. Even if you don't want to race
all of
Formula
them,
1.
Mercedes, McLaren, Renault, Honda, you name it, Red Bull. There's resources there and they're learning at a rate much quicker at that age than kids that don't have that.
Yeah.
That don't have access to that. And we have the ability to do it. So, yeah.
But in North America, though,
we have the ability to do it. We just need to pull resources together. No, but like the top teams, top people in motorsports could put something together.
Who's doing it?
No, I'm saying they could.
They could.
I think we need it.
I think someone needs to band together. Look, we can yap our traps
let's table this.
Let's table this. Yeah, we can yap our traps about someone needs to do this, but we're just two guys in the mic here.
We did say we were going to try with the bringing Cafe back that we were going to try to do have a format to our show,
right?
Which I think most people would hope, but I think they like that we don't have a format.
Yeah.
But we also know if we have a format, we'll never stick to it. So we're going to try.
Sure.
So we're going to segue a little bit now to previewing the IndyCar season,
Oh.
just because it's on my mind. I know
Okay.
it's still a little bit out in front of us
Buckle up.
because we do have IMSA coming up this next weekend. So but we can talk about that too.
What do you?
I think
Yeah, you
okay, let's
shake
go to
your head.
well. I think IndyCar's easier to focus on because
Yeah.
it's like one driver, it's not multiple.
Too
But
much.
IMSA, I'll say this: Mazda, it's Mazda's championship to lose this year in prototype.
Sure.
I think the car is by far the fastest car out there. If they can make it last, no one's beating them.
Yeah. Super quick.
I think Penske's going to be their biggest title contender.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even Daytona, I think.
The Cadillac's just dropping back. What's going on?
No, I
No,
think they're
because-
there. I think the outright pace of the Cadillac and the Acura, the Acura and the Mazda they're faster cars.
Yeah.
And
Unless it be
the Mazda last year looked ridiculous at points, like unbeatable.
Yeah.
But again, it just comes back to that reliability. So if they get that reliability sorted, I think they're going to be untouchable this year.
Sure.
I think the Acura will be there. I think Dane and Montoya will be right there, hard to beat.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then in the GTLM category will be interesting because there's no more.
LMP2?
Yeah, I think, but
I
there's
don't
like
think
it's
that's-
like
that
one
is
or two
not the
cars.
move. They need to not do that.
No.
It's just stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you want to be a competitor, it's
Well, most of the
doesn't-
time, the people that race LMP2 are just looking to get. I want to race. I want to
Sometimes.
trope. No, most of them.
But there's some guys that are like,
There's no. There's not going to be a group of LMP2 cars. The only reason why you're racing LMP2 is because you want a trophy.
yeah, you're pot hunting.
I'm sorry. It is what it is.
But here's the problem. So then you have LMP3, which I think is an amazing category. I think LMP3 is so. I will praise that thing till.
How does you probably know this? What does an LMP3 lap time compare to a GTLM car?
Very close.
Like, is the LMP3
GTLM
faster?
GTLM, I think, is a little faster.
So you could.
GTLM.
Oh, it's a little bit faster. So it may be difficult to race
But-
LMP3s and GTLMs on the same track at the same time because they're too close.
Oh,
They would get in each other's way a little bit too
I'm
much.
trying to think.
Because that's the difficult part, right? If you want them to have at least a little bit of time difference.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
like, sometimes the GTD cars are faster in a straight line than GTLM cars,
Sure.
right? Because they're a little bit narrower, not as much aero.
I want to say that GTD is actually very comparable
Okay.
to an LMP3 car.
Okay. So it'd be difficult for them to replace LMP2 and put an LMP3 in there.
I see what
That's what I was going with. Because that may
Yeah.
be cool.
I don't think I'm not a fan. I get it. I get what's going on, like with the class racing.
Yeah.
It just really makes it a different race.
It does.
It really makes it a different race, and it's definitely a skill. And I'm not saying it's a bad skill to have. Like, I just think as a racing driver, you want to have those moments when you're maximum attack racing. It's like in karting, whenever a lap traffic came into play for the last 2 lap
Right.
dash and lap traffic is in the way, everyone is just like, what the hell is happening? This is everybody's freaking
Yeah.
out. Fans are like, get out!
Oh, I know.
You
The
know?
dads are just
Dads,
freaking.
"Ah!"
It's like what do you think happens when you go to other forms of racing? They don't get black flagged off the track. You have to
Right.
deal with it.
Right, you got to deal with it. And
Oh, I always think that's hilarious.
it is, and but even the leaders are just like, what the fuck? It's bad, and it might decide the decision of the race, and it's just like,
So where are you
do
going with
you
this?
want that?
Where are you going with this?
So you're constantly
Looking in your mirrors.
doing that with, let's say you're in a DPI, let's say you're doing
No.
that, and you
I know
are
what you mean.
constantly passing, and that
Yeah,
I'm
I'd
not
much
gonna
rather
say
be in that having to pass than
It's horrible.
when you are in the slower class and you are it's.
I did E3 and
Oh,
did the-
you did 25 hour.
I did the 25 hours.
So you have a little bit of experience with this now.
And we were in a Mazda
Sketchy.
3.
It's sketchy.
We
It
were in
can
a
be
Mazda,
sketchy.
We were in a Mazda 3 that, for whatever reason, is a front wheel drive car, and it toasted rears.
What?
Yes, dude. There was whatever reason they had a lot of rotation built into the car. Just the setup
That's
that
normal
came
with front wheel drive cars.
I know, but this was absurd, and it was just to the point where you can't hang on to it in a hairpin. It goes
Wow.
to ice, and so we tried to take it out because we only got one practice session before we qualified and raced, and it would slide, it's heavy, so it just used it up a little
Yeah.
bit. So we were, I mean, basically after half a stint, the tires are like nearly down to the cords. At sometimes they were like I
Right.
was driving the car on cords. Literally, it's like 2 a.m.
Budget program.
There's a budget program. Like, the back kink
Yeah.
at Thunder Hill.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was trying to just not even move the wheel.
Yeah.
Like,
Me-
trying
meant-
to,
yeah.
just a little.
If I move my body a little bit and
Yes.
transfer a little bit of weight, the
Maybe
car
a
will
little-
turn, right?
But if you go like this, then it's like, and then there's like 90 cars
Yeah.
at Freight Train.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just always.
You're always
looking
driving in your
mirror.
mirror.
And it's like that form of racing. I get it, but it's not like
It's not.
attack mode.
It's not fun. It is, but I know what you mean. You're racing in your mirrors a lot.
Yeah, it's not like racing like you want racing to be.
You're right. So let's talk IndyCar.
Okay,
I feel like
let's
that's
move
all we
on
need to
from
say
that.
about him.
Yeah.
So I love IMSA, but it's just there's
That's the thing. I don't think.
and you don't really know. Like we can predict a lot, but we don't really know after the roar, like who was sandbagging, who wasn't, who's
it's
even
hard to know.
sandbagging the first race. Because I know from experience, teams would sandbag for the first few races and just get the points they need to get, and then as the BOP switched to cars, that's when they started to attack at the end of the year because
They'd be lightning
it's
quick.
harder for them. Well, it's harder for the series to smack a bunch of BOP on them
Sure.
at the end of the year, right? You want to be the car at the end of the year, and you
Sure.
do see the really good teams tend to do that.
Yeah.
They're really strong at the end of the year, right? At the beginning of the year, it's like, oh, we're here, but not destroying people.
Yes.
So, yeah. I watch it. I'm not that in tune with it much
I
anymore.
know.
But I'm really excited about the IndyCar season. I think Newgarden, Power, man, those two are going to be hard to beat this year.
Let's
per
talk
the
about
usual.
how it ended at Laguna. That's where things.
I didn't watch.
You didn't?
No, I think I was.
You didn't watch it on TV?
I think I was at a race somewhere. I don't think I watched. I remember. It was so long ago. I remember a little bit of it. I remember the intensity of whether or not Rossi and what was going to happen there. I think Rossi's going to be a killer this year. I think he's probably pretty pissed off that he just narrowly missed the title
Again.
It'll be interesting. I think the thing I'm most interested in, because I know both of them, is how the two McLaren drivers are going to do. Pato
Yes.
and Oliver.
That'll be fun.
And I'm really, really excited to see what they can do, because there's a lot of hate out there right now for McLaren picking two young guns and, getting rid of Hinch. And
you know what?
and I respect, and I think it was the right move. I think they saw what it did in their Formula One program.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it really comes down to. I think they saw the success they had. And okay, Carlos Sainz Jr. is experienced at this point. He's not.
Yeah,
He's a veteran.
Yeah.
He's young, but he's a veteran. But I think seeing what Lando brought and the energy and new faces, marketability, the hunger,
Sure.
right? I think it will help raise the level of their program. And they know it's going to be a hard first year, but it's something they're buying into a long-term program here with these two drivers.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think with the resources they have.
And imagine, Fernando Alonso was the guy before that.
Right.
And
And
they
that's
go
what
from Fernando Alonso.
Well, I wonder too if Fernando was trying to get a seat and they said no to him, because it was weird
Yeah.
that maybe he didn't want to do a full-time IndyCar program, right? Because you hear rumors now that he's talking to teams for 2021. First of all, if any Formula One
always
team brings Alonso back in 2021, and I love Alonso. That is
Yeah.
the dumbest thing.
No, you can't be doing
He's
that.
done. Let him go do his Dakar,
You gotta
his Le
build a
Mans,
program.
his Indy program.
You got to
Well,
build a program.
I
If-
think
if you're a long-term, legitimate Formula One team, you got to build around your guys for the next 10 years.
I
you
think.
know?
Well, I think he's a detriment to programs. I think the stories you hear
Nobody wants to say that.
where he is me. I'm the man. I'm the man. I'm the man.
Right.
I think he's a detriment to programs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's having like a superstar in your camp, and like everybody has to cater to them,
It's like-
and you lose focus
do you-
on catering to yourself.
Do you
the
follow
team.
football at all? Soccer.
No.
Okay. So Neymar is one of the biggest names in
sure.
soccer, right? There's been a lot of controversy with him and the team he's with and being transferred and everything. That's a perfect example at someone. It's like Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
That's just too big for their own good.
Yeah.
That can't just be humble enough to be like, I'm just part of the program.
Yeah.
Right. I have my job, but I'm not bigger than the team.
Yeah.
And I feel like Alonso, everywhere he goes, he's bigger than the team.
Yeah.
I think Ferrari was the only spot that he couldn't do that, right?
Sure.
He couldn't be bigger than Ferrari.
Yeah.
But
true.
everywhere else he went, I'm bigger than this.
Yeah.
I'm Alonso.
And that happens in racing. That
Oh, yeah.
happens. You come from a country where you're fully, like everybody loves you there. You're the second coming. Like this guy is a god, and he's gonna put on for Spain. That is, and you're winning everything, and you're
Yep.
coming up through the ranks, and now you're in Formula One, and you're competing for a world title.
Yep.
Get out of here. I mean,
Yep.
you're the man. Who cares? I don't care about you. Like,
Right.
I'm the man.
Yep.
And you have a whole team built around you now of, you got management, you got PR team, you got marketing, agent. And it's just like everybody's catering to your every move. And you got
Right.
your coach. Like, the whole team is like, we come in here, we're like, look, whatever team I don't even know what is the team name again?
Right.
Like, I forget. And that's hard because that type of nature, it like takes away from engineering. It takes away from their own PR. It takes away from, will the sponsor fit? Like, you have to make it fit with
Right.
Alonso. So I agree with that, but I think it's kind of confusing. It's kind of confusing about his deal because he's a two-time world champion. So that doesn't make sense.
And he is arguably one of the best drivers to drive anything, period.
Yeah.
Ever to live. I mean,
Yeah.
he's incredible. He's one of my favorite drivers.
Yeah.
But I just think his ego gets in his own way.
Yeah. It's kind of, I think Tom Brady is a good example of someone that he is now a superstar. For a long time, he wasn't,
No.
even though he was like
Even
really,
after like the first two
Yeah.
Super Bowls, that people, Brady's good, but Rodgers, Manning.
Yeah.
Think about how long people talked about how
I know.
Manning is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's won 2 Super Bowls compared to 6.
Yeah.
You're telling me the 6-time guy isn't better than the 2-time guy? But for how long do people say that Manning's better quarterback than Brady?
Totally, yeah.
So
Yeah. So I think ultimately what he's able to do as a leader, as a really good player too, is plug into the program and prioritize that.
yes,
As like,
and
this
he's
is
not
a team.
He's not bigger than the team.
Right.
Now, you listen to anything that he's done, mic'd up or anything. He is, or people that know him, he is very confident in his ability.
Sure. Totally.
But he still knows he is not bigger than the team.
Right. Yeah, and it probably takes a guy like Belichick to man the helm there.
Probably, but that's where I think you see a problem with like a Baker Mayfield or some of these other quarterbacks in the league. That Cam Newton is a perfect example. They're bigger. Their personality is bigger than the team.
Yeah, it supersedes everything.
It
else.
supersedes it. They can, they may every once in a while say things that kind of make them seem like they're not that they're not a team player, but I think in their mind they're bigger than the team.
Yeah, like ultimately,
It's an
for
Antonio.
my
It's an
stats.
Antonio Brown. It's a
Yeah.
It's an Odell Beckham.
It's for their stats. It's like, yes, I want to win a championship because that helps my resume, like my stats as a player. As a Cam Newton,
They want
Super Bowl is. I obviously want us to win a Super Bowl because that goes under my resume. Like, I have now won a Super Bowl.
It's the player that wants the pride to say I'm the highest paid X in the league, right? Think about look like a Joe Flacco. What happened after he won the Super Bowl and got paid all that money? What does that say?
Movie recording has been stopped. I think it's probably full.
Okay. You got another card you can throw in there?
Do we? No, I don't think so. What should we do? What we could do is I could stop recording on this. Let me just hit stop.
What's the one underneath there? We good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Odell is just a problem, and I think that's it's just another example of how even in racing, there's people that just think they're bigger than their program, bigger than their team. So I'm really interested to see, this IndyCar season and the two young guns going up and the fight for the title. I think it's going to be a similar story to last year. I think it's going to be the same guys. And
you think so?
It should be fun. Yeah.
So what do you think about, so they got the new aero screen, which I think is good. It just the airflow thing. That seems to be the problem.
It looks, I've seen it looks horrible on some cars and it looks really good on others. And I think I pinpointed what, at least for my aesthetic, what I think looks good. The ones that it makes it look like it's a enclosed cockpit, like the way the paint scheme flows into it, and you can't tell it's a separate piece. I think it looks great. So I think the Penske car I think their car it looks really, really good.
Yeah.
The other ones I've seen where it looks like it's a separate piece, it looks horrible in my opinion.
Yeah.
But man, when it flows in, it looks like it's one piece. I think it looks good.
Yeah, that's cool. So you got the Penskes.
Yep.
They're obviously going to be a factor. Newgarden coming off a title.
He is very confident.
He's very confident. He's got a lot going. And then you got Rossi on the other hand. That's very hungry, and I think fought tooth and nail at Laguna to try to win that championship. And it was cool to watch.
Herta.
And then you got Herta.
Yeah, I think hopefully he doesn't have a sophomore slump. I don't think he is going to.
How do you think that they were able to be so competitive? What do you think was behind that? Do you think so? I'm sure there's a lot of sharing between Andretti and Harding.
I think that's a big part of it. I think the kid is more talented than maybe a lot of people thought he was earlier in his career. And again, it's like what we've always said.
Like in Indy Lights or something?
Well, you just continue to develop from karting to the first few years in junior formula. Like they have a program and they continue to develop as a driver. And he's at a point now where he's crushing it. You cannot deny that kid's talent.
Yeah.
And especially in the program, it's not like he went straight into Penske or someone, and you could be like, "Well, I mean, the car is amazing, dude." I mean, the kid's on it.
He's
on it, and I think he's gonna rookie year done next year. I think it's gonna be even better.
And back it up to his results in USF 2000. You look back at, I think it was 2016, 2015 maybe, and he was teammates with Adrian Starantino.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the name of the team, but it was, out of the top 10, I think. Finished out of the top 10 in points.
You do have to remember, though, that he was
young.
Very young.
He was like, 15?
Yeah, I mean, he started in cars quite young.
Yes. But I think it's important. He came off of an F1600 championship.
Yeah.
So he had some seat time, raced against some quick drivers. But I think it's important to remember, don't write off. A lot of people get caught up just in the results. Where did he finish in USF 2000? Did he win the championship? I don't want to hear it. If he didn't, I don't want to hear it. And that is, I think, when you look at Herta's program, and his dad obviously being Brian Herta, he kept developing Colton, and they saw it as value to go over to Europe.
Yes.
He wasn't trying to race an F1.
Nope.
He was building towards a campaign in Indy Lights.
The whole time. And
they kept developing. They put him in Carlin's program.
Yep.
They obviously have their own regiment going. And he comes back in Indy Lights, and I don't want to say he's a completely different driver because he's never been a completely different driver. I'm sure there was just honing in on what his craft was. And then he comes into Lights, the Andretti Autosport. Obviously, they've been super dominant in Lights and race against Pato O'Ward. He raced against, did he race against Oliver?
No, Oliver.
But a lot of guys like Santi, Rudy.
I mean, dude, the kid's got it. He's going to be in the series for a long time.
Absolutely.
That was not a first-year fluke. He may have a slump here or there every once in a while, but the kid's coming.
Yeah, and it's a testament to just working at it. That's what
we talk about, man. We talk about all the time. It's about the program. It's about putting your head down, doing the work, being humble about it, and believing in yourself, and just willing to do the work necessary. It's not about, and I think, we have a lot of dads and parents that listen to this podcast. It shows there's a lot of these drivers that If you go and dive deep into their program, they maybe weren't the best or superstars in karting, but they had a program that they worked towards, and they just believe they didn't let a year of a slump deter them or deter the belief that they could achieve something in their career. So no, it's exciting.
Yeah,
it's exciting to see where he's going to go. It's exciting to see if he can fight for the title.
Is he still with Harding for next year?
I think so. Yeah.
And is there another driver there?
I don't know. I haven't paid enough attention.
I don't think they have because I think that's where Pato kind of got slighted out of the deal, and they didn't have money for a 2-car program. So
could be.
That's apparent. But then you got it. Andretti Osborne, what, they have 5 cars?
Something like that. A lot.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Rossi and I would say Hunter Ray are the stars of that program a little bit. I think Hunter Ray's there to support in car setup.
He has the experience and the knowledge.
He's going to be running the top 5 or 10.
He's the elder statesman, so yeah.
And then Penske, obviously, they're going to be a force always.
Yep.
Always. And Connor Daly in a full-time,
That's
a full-time
awesome,
ride,
man. No,
right?
full road course, which is awesome for him,
cool.
man. I'm so happy for him. That's
It's
really
interesting
cool.
too because he was really successful on ovals this past year.
I know.
You know.
I know. I think this will lead to, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think it will lead to a 2021 full-time ride.
Yeah.
I think
with Carpenter.
Who knows? But I think he has the talent to do it, man. I think this will only help his confidence, and I think he's going to showcase what he can do on in all forms of IndyCar and all types of circuits, and he's going to get an IndyCar ride full-time 2021.
Now, Dixie's going to be fighting for it.
Yep.
Narrow, I think he finished 3rd in points, maybe?
I can't remember.
Maybe 2nd?
Yeah, Dixon's always there, man.
He's always there. He's always going to be there.
He's a
the
stud.
Question mark
He is a stud.
Then you got Rosenquist, who...
He's in... Man, okay, look.
I mean,
we might have to table this discussion because you're right.
That goes deep.
I mean, it's like there are a lot of guns
and
that can fight for the title in really good programs.
Yes, Rosenquist with Ganassi and Dixie as kind of that leading role. Rosenquist, for sure, he learned a ton this past year. He was fighting for wins at Mid-Ohio, which is a really tough track, and he was super quick at Laguna. There was unfortunate things. He got penalized for that spin in quali, which was
the cars are different. The way you race is different. He had to get used to that. I think you're right. I think he's going to be a threat. So
then you got Ericsson, who just came in there with money. I don't see that.
He'll be up front, but he's talented, obviously. But I don't think he's going to be a title contender.
It was kind of the way I think of it is like when Ed Jones came into Ganassi.
Right.
There's the same type of hope, and I just think Ganassi is a program that you have to be so extraordinary to stand out there, and I think you can then.
Yep.
But it's a unique type of thing. If you took that type of money to Andretti, I feel like you could be more competitive if you weren't like the Dixie style or Rosenquist style of driving. So I think there's a lot to play for there.
That's
which is cool.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped to see it.
Yeah.
Well, man, it was good. It was good getting back at it. I got to run.
Cafe Machina is back, baby.
It's
we've been busy,
pumped.
but we're here now.
We're here. We're gonna try to do this once a week, folks. We're gonna try maybe every other week in the first little bit as we get set up. I live in San Diego now, so it's a little bit harder for us to get together. We're gonna do a few where you'll be here and we'll phone in maybe a little bit shorter episodes, and then I'm gonna try to get up to LA and be able to do this face to face a little bit more. But we're back. We're committed to this. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So tune in. Leave in the comments below, guys. If you certain topics you want to hear. If you like a structure. If you don't. If you like what we do, which is normally just ramble on about.
Just ramble on.
Whatever. But let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and tell everyone.
Everybody says format. I don't know about the viewers here, but when I talk about a podcast, people are like, "Oh, you got to have format."
No, the biggest podcast in the world has no format. Joe Rogan.
3 hours.
And I love it.
But it might be unique. I don't know yet.
We'll see.
Let us know.
We'll see.
You can find this on hopefully iTunes. Look for it there first. Maybe YouTube. Definitely Instagram. There's going to be clips of it. IGTV maybe.
Yep.
Definitely iTunes.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Cool.
Stay tuned.
Later, guys.
Love you.